morning, everyone, and happy Saturday. My name is Kelly, and this is another weekend of clarinets, cats, and coffee. Also, look, Luke's laying in the little bed that I made for him. Yes! In today's video, I am going to go over just a few rhythmic principles to help all of you guys kind of navigate your way through all of the crazy stuff that's out there in music. And the example piece that I'm playing today is the oh so exhausting Rose Etude number 13. It is full of all kinds of crazy rhythms, and you know, if we're going to talk about rhythm, we might as well just like go crazy with it, right? Before we do that, I want to say thank you to all of my patrons on my channel. You guys are awesome. Your enthusiasm is just contagious and I love it. If any of you are interested in supporting my channel and you're not already a patron, click on the link below for Patreon and become a patron. You'll get cool perks and all kinds of stuff, and we'll just have a great time. Also, I have a Facebook group dedicated to clarinets, cats, and coffee. And every week, viewers can record themselves playing a snippet or all of the weekly excerpt and post it up on the Facebook group. Everybody has been so supportive since the very beginning of this Facebook group, and it's just full of all kinds of super nice, wonderful people. So if you play clarinet and you're a super nice, wonderful person, please join the group and share some videos of yourself playing the weekly excerpts. All right, so the big thing that I want you guys to just like ingrain in your head, if you don't already have this, is subdividing. That is the number one most important thing when it comes to rhythm. So what exactly do I mean by subdividing? I know, like, we all go to rehearsal and we hear our band directors or our conductors or orchestra things or whatever, and they're all like beating us over the head, subdivide. But a lot of them don't really tell us what that means. And so here I am. I'm going to tell you. So subdividing means to take a note and literally divide it up inside your head into equal parts. I know that's very vague. So we're going to use Rose Etude number 13 as an example. Our time signature here is 3/4 time. So that means each measure has 3 beats and the quarter note gets the beat, okay? That bottom number, that number 4, that's really, really important to being able to determine how to subdivide throughout the piece, okay? So we've got quarter note beats. Although it's adagio non troppo, which is a very, very slow tempo. So if we don't want to rush and we don't want to drag and we want to stay right in time, we need to find a subdivision that we can count reliably at for the whole piece that will enable us to keep a consistent tempo, putting rubato aside, keep a consistent tempo more or less throughout the entire piece, okay? So if you divide a quarter note in half, you get an 1/8 note, right? So you get 2 1/8 notes for every quarter note. That's a little easier. I can tap my foot to that. So if you think about it, if you can't tap your foot consistently, use a metronome. All right, so that's about 104 to the 1/8 note, okay? That the metronome is going right now, okay? So that's a whole lot easier if we divide it up into 6. That's a whole lot easier now that we divide each measure up into 6 equal parts. So that first note, you look at it, it's a half note. We all know how many beats is in a half note. You get 2 quarter notes and a half note, but we're subdividing 1/8 notes. So those 2 quarter notes are divided up into 1/8 notes. So if we're subdividing 1/8 notes, that first note right there gets 4 beats. 1 and 2 and. The next note is a quarter note. So if we're counting in 1/8 notes, it gets 2 clicks. And you go through the whole piece just like that. Now, if we look at measure 3, that's the first like kind of wild and crazy measure. We've got a quarter note tied over to a 16th, a couple 16th notes, and then 16th note triplets. Ah! So our subdividing is going to take a little bit of a twist in this measure, okay? So what do we know right now? We know we're counting in eighth notes, so that quarter note is going to be 2 eighth notes long, 2 clicks. You tie it over to the first 16th note. Now for subdividing eighth notes, if you subdivide eighth notes, one more subdivision, you get 16th notes. There are 2 16th notes inside every eighth note. So now we know that the tie is worth half an eighth note because it's a 16th. And if we come off of that tie on the E of beat 2, then we can make it to the next click, which would be the 1, 2, 3, 4, the 4th eighth note on that G, the 4th eighth note of the measure. So it's really important that we actually subdivide in our heads one step further in the first half of this measure into 16th notes. Otherwise, we may hold the tie a little bit too long or not hold it long enough, and then all of a sudden we've dropped a beat and we've gotten out of time. Okay, so we've divided that up. Now, the next part of the measure here, we've got 16th note triplets. And so the rule with triplets is you divide up the whatever the beat is into 3 equal parts over the time of 2. Ugh, what does that mean? So essentially, when you have 16th note triplets, you have to fit 3 of those into the time of 2 16th notes because they're 16th note triplets. Those are divided up into 3 equal parts over 2 16th notes. Now, we've been subdividing eighth notes the whole time, so if we kind of go down to our most basic subdivision for this whole piece, eighth notes. So we know that there are 2 16th notes inside of an eighth note, and there are 3 16th note triplets in the time of 2 16th notes, which is in the time of 1 eighth note. Are you following me? So in this measure, 3 of those 16th note triplets fit inside one of those eighth note clicks, and they have to be divided up evenly across the measure. Otherwise, they're not actually triplets. So if you're playing it like this, it's correct. Triple, triple, okay, so that whole measure together, if we're thinking in eighth notes like this metronome, will sound like this. And then going on like that, okay? So once you know how to divide beats up into smaller subdivisions and you're confident with how these things are evenly divided across the measure, then you can practice this with your metronome, get really good at all of these internal subdivisions. And once you're comfortable with that, then you can add rubato, which is essentially speeding up and slowing down to make your music sound more expressive. But rubato only works if you actually know what's going on. If you don't know what's going on and you're just like all over the place with your tempo and you have no idea the difference between a triplet quarter note and a triplet eighth note and all of this, it's just going to have no expressive musical meaning, and your listeners are going to be like, what the heck is going on? I can't follow this. So first, get your rhythm down, do it with your metronome. Second, add your rubato in. So the last tricky part that people tend to get a bit like tripped up on is in measure 13. I think it's measure 13. And that one's tricky because what do we have in it? We have some 30-second notes. So the way we count 30-second notes, first of all, the whole name 30-second notes, it's all based on how many of those notes fit into one measure of 4/4 time. So 32 of those notes fit into one full measure of 4/4 time. We're in 3/4 time, so it's a little funny, right? But that if you divide that up into 4 quarter note beats, then each quarter note gets 8 30-second notes. If you divide a quarter note in half, you get an eighth note. We're subdividing in eighth notes, right? 4 of those 30-second notes fit inside 1/8 note, subdivision. Okay, so we have to divide each eighth note up into 4 equal parts if we want to accurately count 30-second notes. Okay, so when we get to this, that first beat, we'll say the first beat, like the first quarter note beat of that measure, we have a dotted eighth note. Okay, so the dotted eighth note is worth 3/16 notes, because the rule of the dot is you add half of the value of the note that the dot is attached to the full value of the note. So if an eighth note is worth half a beat, then half of a beat is a 16th note. So it's worth 3/16 notes. Okay? And if we think about how beats are divided up to 30-second notes, right? So we're counting in eighth notes. We know that there are 4 30-second notes inside 1 full eighth note, but there are only 2 30-second notes here. So if we take away 2 and we divide an eighth note in half, that means those 2 30-second notes have to fit inside the span of 1 16th note. Whew. So what is that? So if we literally subdivide that beat out, da 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 da. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 1. Ugh, that's a lot. That's a mouthful right there. So I know that this is a really big one to be recording yourself and put up on the Facebook group. So my request for any of you watching this, if you are feeling like, this is just too much, I can't do this whole thing because it's hard, right? And it's like so much work. Just choose a little bit of it, like the first couple of phrases, record and put it up on Facebook. You can even just record yourself with a metronome and put it up as well. So even just a little bit, and really thinking like very subdividing will really help start to get some of the weird rhythmic inconsistencies in our music down and just, better. Thank you all so much for watching. If you have any tips on rhythm and counting and keeping things consistent, please leave them in the comments below. If you guys are going to record this, please put it up this week. I'd love to hear you. Even just 4 measures of this would be wonderful. And that's about it. So I hope you have a wonderful weekend, a good rest of your week, and as always, happy practicing.